The dollar is in trouble, and this time, the world knows it. From Beijing to Brazil, countries are racing to escape America's financial grip. And for the first time in 80 years, it's starting to work. And if you're holding dollars in your bank, in your business, your retirement, your 401k, whatever it is, you better pay attention, because this story directly affects you. The US just reignited a global trade war, and beneath the surface, something much bigger is unfolding. A currency war, a battle over who gets to write the rules of the next financial system. While BRICS expands, China builds ports and pipelines to decrease its dependence on US dollars. Russia and China are already testing Bitcoin for international trade. Let me repeat that. Russia and China are already testing Bitcoin for international trade. And here at home, well, Trump is doubling down, not just on tariffs, but on stablecoins and Bitcoin as the future pillars of American power. So what's really going on? Maybe this isn't about preserving the old system. Maybe this is about building the next one. Ladies and gentlemen, let's break it down. Before we dive into the latest moves, we need to zoom out. For the past decade, cracks in the dollar system have been growing. China has been building alternatives. BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa has been expanding. US sanctions have turned the dollar from a trusted currency into a political weapon. Now, the pressure is boiling over, and the US is responding the only way it knows how, by going on the offense. It looked like just another trade headline. More tariffs, more tough talk. Yet something deeper was set into motion. In April 2025, the Trump administration launched a full-scale tariff blitz, hitting Chinese imports with sweeping new taxes. And the shockwaves were immediate. China's currency, the yuan, plunged to its lowest levels since 2007. Panic spread through Beijing. The central banks scrambled, ordering major state lenders to stop buying US dollars just to keep the financial system from spiraling out of control. But don't get distracted by the headlines. The trade deficit, the tariffs, the press conferences, they're just the surface. The real story? This was the opening shot of a new currency war, because behind the scenes, what's actually unfolding isn't only about jobs or factories, it's about control over the most powerful weapon in America's arsenal. Nope, not nukes, the dollar. Since World War II, the US dollar has been more than just money. It's been the foundation of global power, the currency every nation on the planet has needed, the system every bank must obey by. Commodities, they're priced in dollars. Central banks stockpile it. And the US, it polices the entire financial world with it through sanctions, asset freezes, and global compliance mechanisms that only work if the dollar is at the center. That's the real reason these tariffs matter. They signal a hard stance from Washington. The dollar dominance is non-negotiable, and anyone who crosses it will get hit. China understands this perfectly. Through trade deals, currency swaps, and new digital settlement systems, Beijing has been building an off-ramp, an escape route from the US monetary control. And Washington just sent a powerful message. If you try to exit the system, we will make you pay. For decades, the US dollar wasn't just money. It was always power. When you control the world's reserve currency, you don't have to beg or bargain. You just push a button and pressure gets applied globally exactly how you want it. And then came the moment that shattered the illusion. In 2022, after Russia invaded Ukraine, the US and its allies didn't just issue condemnations. They launched a financial offensive. In a matter of just days, they froze $300 billion in Russian central bank reserves. And just like that, gone. It was a warning shot heard around the world. If your money is in dollars, it's not really yours. That move did exactly what it was supposed to do in the short term. But in the long run, it may go down as one of the most important miscalculations in modern economic history because it woke everybody up. From that moment on, the message was clear. If the US can do this to Russia, they can do it to anyone. And countries all over the world started quietly building exits. China and Russia now settle over 90% of their trade in yuan and rubles. 90%. It used to be 100% in dollars. BRICS is building its own BRICS Pay system, a financial system or network designed to bypass SWIFT. And if you're not familiar with SWIFT, it is the rails that all banks and currency flow on today. India bought oil from the UAE in rupees, not dollars. And Saudi Arabia and China, well, they locked in a 50 billion yuan currency swap, insulating their trade from US oversight. And while the dollar still accounts for 58% of global reserves and 80% of trade finance, that dominance is no longer absolute. It's eroding bit by bit. These aren't conspiracy theories or speculative ideas. They're official policy moves by some of the world's biggest economies. They're hedging and preparing. They've seen what happens when you go against the US with their money tied to the dollar. And they're not sticking around to find out what happens next. Even before stepping back into the Oval Office, Trump saw the writing on the wall. The dollar, it was under attack. If you watch the channel, we've been talking about this for years. Not from tanks or missiles, but from quiet trade deals and new technologies meant to bypass the dollar and its infrastructure and cut out the US. And Trump made his position crystal clear. You leave the dollar, you're not doing business with the US. At first, it sounded like a campaign bluster, but once back in the office, it became policy. In January 2025, Trump took to Truth Social with a blunt warning to BRICS. Try to replace the dollar and you'll face 100% tariffs. He called out what he labeled seemingly hostile countries and made the new terms unmistakable. Access to US markets would now be conditional on the loyalty to the dollar. There's no chance that BRICS will replace the US dollar in international trade. And any country that tries should say hello to tariffs and goodbye to America. It marked the start of a new economic doctrine, bold, aggressive, and unapologetically American. Call it what it is, Trump's dollar defensive doctrine. No more subtle diplomacy, no more waiting for global consensus. This was economic warfare, backed by tariffs, currency manipulation charges, export controls, and whatever else it takes to punish de-dollarization, because Washington knows exactly what's at stake. The dollar, as you well know, isn't just paper, it's power. And without it, at the center of global trade, the US loses its biggest geopolitical advantage, the ability to pressure, police, and punish without firing a physical shot. Trump's message couldn't be clearer. Mess with the dollar, you mess with America. And that tells us everything we need to know about where this is going. While the US wages an open trade war, China has been playing a different game, one that's slower, quieter, and arguably more dangerous. At the heart of China's strategy is something far more permanent than trade policy: land, leverage, and long-term control. Through the Belt and Road Initiative, the BRI, China is building a global economic loop, one that cuts straight through US influence and chips away at dollar dominance without ever firing a shot. Launched in 2013 by President Xi Jinping, BRI has already pulled in over 150 countries and committed more than $1 trillion to infrastructure, ports, railroads, fiber optic cables, and power grids. China's funding doesn't flow through the IMF or the World Bank. It flows through Chinese banks, Chinese contractors, and often in Chinese yuan. And the fine print? It's brutal. Borrowing nations are required to use Chinese firms, source Chinese materials, and repay loans in ways that give Beijing strategic advantages. Just ask Sri Lanka, which was forced to hand over its Hambanattatak. It's Hambanattatak port on a 99-year lease. This is the debt trap in action. China finances a project, builds a project, and if a country defaults, well, China owns the assets. But this isn't just economic, it is geopolitical. China now controls key ports in Pakistan, Greece, and across Africa. Not to mention, Trump says that they basically run the Panama Canal. And BRI partners often fall in line with China's global agenda, backing Beijing at the UN, adopting its telecom infrastructure, and downplaying tensions over Taiwan and the South China Sea. This is how China avoids a direct monetary war, by building an alternative system. One rail, one port, one loan at a time. Because if they can't dethrone the dollar by force, they'll just build around it. But while China's building influence with roads and ports, the US is quietly laying the foundation for a new kind of financial power, one built on blockchain and now stablecoins. At the White House Digital Asset Summit in March 2025, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent made the administration's stance crystal clear. Quote, "We will use stablecoins to keep the US dominant reserve currency." President Trump backed the move publicly, urging lawmakers to deliver a full regulatory framework by August. Stablecoins are no longer seen as experimental tech. They're being positioned as tools of monetary policy and global influence. With stablecoins like USDC and USDT and others that are being built, people around the world can access the dollar instantly. No bank account, no borders, no more friction. In places facing hyperinflation, capital controls, or collapsing financial systems, these digital dollars have become lifelines. They offer users direct exposure to US currency in real time, even in regions where the traditional financial systems have failed. Now, the administration is working to formalize this role. There are two key proposals, the Stable Act and the Genius Act, and they aim to bring legal clarity to the space. Under both, all dollar-backed stablecoins would be required to hold 100% reserves in high-quality US treasuries and liquid assets. That requirement does more than ensure stability. It strengthens demand for US debt, deepens financial ties to American infrastructure, and extends the dollar reach into regions previously out of reach. This marks a proactive shift in monetary strategy, a way to modernize the dollar for a world that's becoming increasingly digital and decentralized. The US is building a new monetary rail system, one where access to the dollar is always on, always connected, and no longer tied to geography. The rules are being written now, and the direction is clear. The future of currency is programmable, accessible, and designed to reinforce the dollar's central role in the global economy. Stablecoins may help extend the dollar's reach, but the real wild card in all of this, you got it, it's Bitcoin. Not long ago, it was dismissed as a fringe experiment. Trust me, I've been dealing with this for over a decade. Critics called it a bubble. Regulators tried to box it in or shut it down, But today, Bitcoin is stepping into a new role, one that cuts through the noise of politics, trade wars, and fiat dysfunction. It's becoming a neutral, apolitical monetary layer for the next era of global finance. The signs are already showing, and they're really hard to ignore. China and Russia have reportedly settled cross-border energy deals using Bitcoin. Think about that for a second. That is huge. France's state energy giant EDF is planning to mine it with surplus grid power. And in places where the system has already failed, like Nigeria, Argentina, Venezuela, well, people are using it daily to escape inflation and preserve their wealth. More and more, Bitcoin is reminding the world of a simple reality. When the old system stumbles, the decentralized one does not. Matthew Siegel from VanEck summed it up best. Quote, "De-dollarization is moving Bitcoin into a monetary role. And it's not just the people turning to Bitcoin. The US is now front-running its competitors with the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, while also promoting friendly regulations and initiatives to support Bitcoin adoption and accumulation. The proposed Bitcoin Act, led by Senator Cynthia Lummis, lays the groundwork for strategic Bitcoin reserve, authorizing the US to acquire up to 1 million Bitcoin over 5 years and hold them long term. It's a clear sign that the US is getting serious about Bitcoin's role in the future. It signals something bigger. Bitcoin is no longer an outsider. It's entering the conversation at the highest levels of government. This is mind-blowing for me. I can't believe it's actually happening. And not as a threat, but as a contingency plan. It's like the lifeblood right now. The US isn't trying to shut it down anymore. It's starting to prepare with it in mind. This isn't the old gold standard. This is the Bitcoin contingency, a parallel system now emerging as a foundation for what comes next in global finance. Which brings us to the final piece of the puzzle and how all of this fits together. The US dollar, it isn't dead, but its supremacy, that's on life support currently. As countries like China push forward with de-dollarization, the US isn't sitting still. It's moving fast to stay in control of the global monetary game. Stablecoins are the new front line. They let the US digitally export dollars, even into places where banking systems have collapsed, where inflation is ripping, or where sanctions have shut every other door, except for one. Now, with bills like the Stable Act and Genius Act in motion, the US is building a fully regulated digital dollar pipeline backed by treasuries, fueled by crypto rails, and designed to keep the dollar front and center in a system that's fracturing fast. But stablecoins aren't the end of the story. In the background, something bigger is brewing. A strategic Bitcoin reserve, both a hedge and a power move. A recognition that if the current system cracks, Bitcoin may be the only exit ramp worth trusting. The Trump administration isn't treating Bitcoin like a threat anymore. It's treating it like insurance against a world where fiat collapses and trust disappears. We're watching a two-track strategy unfold. Keep the old system alive, but with digital upgrades. Prepare for the new one in case it all breaks. Stablecoins are the dollar's survival plan. Bitcoin is the escape hatch. The trade war isn't about goods anymore. It's about control over the next global financial order. And that order, it's already being built. So the question is, what happens now? Well, love it or hate it, the US is going all in on stablecoins and Bitcoin. And if that's the play, I definitely wouldn't bet against it. And if you know me well, I'm all in on Bitcoin. And guys, if you found this video valuable, do me a favor, hit that like button, share the video with friends and family. It would mean the world to me. It's a free way to help and support the channel. If you're new, my name's Chasse. Welcome. I've been in this space for 13 years, keeping you educated and informed in economics and politics and everything else as it pertains to the crypto industry. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, stay sharp, stack sats. I'll see ya. Bye-bye.